Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. If anybody's having problems, please just flag it up in the Q&A button. That should be at the top of your screen if you take your mouse up to the top. I'm just going to give everybody 2 minutes as we seem to be picking up participants kind of in ones and twos. I'll let them come in and I should be able to kick us off about 2 minutes past. I'll speak to you shortly. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first Cyber Loss Prevention Forum webinar. I'm delighted to be joined here by my speakers this morning and very grateful to Herts Chartered Accountants who've hosted us so that we can all be in the same room this morning. Without further ado, let's get cracking. So I am Richard Higginbotham, so I'm Product and Professional Services Director at Vault Connect. I'm just chairing this morning our talent this morning, our speakers. I am delighted to have with me Jenny Williams, who's Cyber Protect Officer at the Northwest Regional Organised Crime Unit. And I'm also sat here with Jonathan Davis, who is a insurance consultant. And we're going to talk to you about the emerging threats and hidden costs of cybercrime. I'll just quickly run through the format of how we're going to run this morning. We expect to run the presentation for around about 30 minutes. As with these things, once we start enjoying ourselves, then timing can go a little bit out the window, but we're going to allow time at the end for question and answers. Please raise any questions that you have on the questions app as they come up. We will circulate answers to all the questions that come up. So if we don't cover any in the allotted time, please don't worry about it. And after the event, probably about half an hour or so after the event, the recording of the webinar will be available on the registration page, so you'll be able to get hold of it there. So enough of me and enough of the hygiene factors this morning. Let's get into what we're here to discuss. So thank you very much, Jenny. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Hi, everybody. My name's Jenny Williams, and as Richard said, I'm from the Northwest Regional Organised Crime Unit. We are seconded police officers and police staff from the 6th Northwest Forces, and some of you might know us as Titan, but we've recently had a rebrand and we've dropped Titan and just kept with the snappy Northwest Regional Organised Crime Unit name instead. So we deal with the more serious and organised crime that happens throughout the Northwest, and I'm from the Cybercrime Unit, and my role is about educating businesses and members of the public on how to stay safe from the threat of cybercrime, because it's not always about having to pay for everything. There's some really good advice that the government has pumped out that you can do yourselves in order to protect yourself. Within our cybercrime unit, we've also got our Pursuit team. They work with action fraud and they get the reports of cybercrime through. They do the investigations. They will go out, arrest offenders. They will take that job right through to court, and hopefully we can get some good convictions on cyber criminals. We've also got our cyber prevent team who work with young people and make sure that young people go down the right route with regards to cyber crime, and they don't start being a little bit naughty online, because we see an awful lot of young people who will start gaming and they start taking their mates' computers offline, and they don't actually realise that this is an offence under the Computer Misuse Act. So it's about working with them and channeling them in the right direction. So these are the top 4 threats that we are seeing to businesses at the moment. So phishing attacks, ransomware, DDoS and the insider threat. And I'll just cover a bit about these as I go through the presentation. So phishing attacks, we're seeing an awful lot of these coming through at the moment, and the biggest one that's happening is from a sextortion email. So I'm not sure if any of you've seen them. I've certainly had one through to my home email address, and I've also had one through to my work email address. And basically it's an email that comes through that says, we know your password for your computers and it is this, and they'll list a password that you've probably used, and they will say, we know you've been looking at naughty things online and visiting websites that maybe you shouldn't be, so if you don't pay us X amount of money in Bitcoin, which is electronic currency, we will share all this information that we have on you with your friends and family. Basically, the way they've got hold of your password is from all of the hacking things that have been happening. You know, BA have had a hack, that's been the latest one that people have been talking about. The Marriott had one last week as well. And these hackings is basically where someone has gone into a database and stolen all of our usernames, passwords, and all other information that company holds against us. So this is a big email attacks that are happening, and we're seeing an awful lot of this being reported within the Northwest at the moment. Recently, though, the sextortion emails are also coming with ransomware attached to them. So ransomware, which I will explain as I go through the presentation, is a little bit different, but this is where malicious software will be downloaded onto your computer if you click on a link or an attachment. And I will mention this as we go through, but I'm just going to explain to you how we categorise cybercrime within the policing environment, and this should hopefully help you understand the different ways in which hacking and the cyber landscape lies. So the first one is from cyber-dependent crime. So these are just crimes that can only be committed with the use of a computer or network. So this is the stuff that's sort of developed over the past 6 or 7 years, and the stuff that the cyber criminals are doing on a daily basis. So you can only commit a hacking, have Trojans, botnets, malware, or distributed denial of service or DDoS attack. You can only commit these with the use of a computer or network. So British Airways, as I mentioned before, they've had a hacking. Students supplied with supplying malware using cyber attacks on Netflix, Vodafone and Amazon. This story actually relates to a young lad who's actually from Stockport. And he was groomed online by an online gang who saw that he had really good potential in carrying out cyber-dependent crimes. He was then using malware and taking all these big companies offline, and then we eventually tracked him down and he was arrested. But he was paid by an organised crime group who we've not being able to trace as easily to carry out these attacks, and that this is why we need to work with young people as well. So that they're the types of crimes that we deal with in the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit. The second way in which we categorise cybercrime is cyber-enabled crime. So these are traditional crimes that have just been made easier with the use of a computer. So crimes that have been around for millions of years, they're never going to go away anytime soon, but it's just a lot easier to commit them with the use of a computer. So bullying, you can bully someone in the workplace, in the school playgrounds, but it's a heck of a lot easier to bully someone online where you're hiding behind a computer and you are a bit faceless. But when this is reported to the police, this is actually still a bullying. It's just got a cyber element. So when you are looking at these types of crimes and you're reading it, because we see so many times where people think, I don't understand what cyber means, I haven't got a clue, it's all too complicated. Try and think about what the actual crime is, and it might help you when you are reading about this to understand what the actual offences that is being committed. So as I mentioned before about the phishing emails, I've talked about the sextortion emails that are coming through, but an easy way for you to check if an email comes through to you to see if it is from the person who you think it might be from is by doing a simple click on where it says from. So this is an email that's come through to my account, this PayPal one, the first box on this screen, and it says at the very top it says from PayPal, and the PayPal's in blue. When you click onto that PayPal link, it will take you through to another screen. So this is the second screen, and it actually will tell you where that email address has come from. So it says other and it says info at extrememotors.pk. So obviously that's nothing to do with PayPal. So that's a very easy, simple thing you can do to just check. However, we know that the criminals are spoofing these a lot better now, and they will try and make them look as genuine as possible. I was speaking with someone who'd received a phishing email from who it looked to be from Lloyds Bank, from their bank. And when they did this check and looked to see where the email had come from, it did look like it said it was from Lloyds Bank, but actually the double L, one was a lowercase l and the other one was a capital I. So at first glance, you'd think, oh, it is definitely from Lloyds because it looks exactly the same, but it wasn't. It was one of them, the L's was actually a capital I. So please be aware of things like this too. Text messages are coming through, and we're also hearing a lot of voice messages, phishing phone calls that are happening. I received one this week from someone pretending to be from HM Revenue and Customs, and they'd left a voicemail on my phone to say, please phone this number because you owe us a lot of money, and if you don't, we'll be sending someone round to your house to arrest you. Obviously, this is all a scam as well. Messages that come through from WhatsApp. So this one here on the screen, hello, Asda is giving away £250 worth of free vouchers to celebrate their birthday. If it sounds too good to be true, it normally is. When would Asda ever give us £250? They just wouldn't. So when you click on these types of messages that come through on WhatsApp, that link will automatically send that same message to all of your contacts. So you need to be really careful if you do click on this, because there'll be people in your contacts list who will trust that that message has come from you. So just really be careful. But basically, a phishing email is just where a criminal wants to find out and get as much information from you as they can. They want to entice you to click on links. And they want you to give them your usernames, passwords, email addresses, bank account details. So just be careful when you do receive these types of emails. So as I said before, ransomware is massive at the moment. So the email that comes through will look like it is a phishing email. So it will potentially be from someone that you are expecting an email from, or it will have a link or an attachment onto it. So this on this screen, this is an email that came through to my work email account, and obviously straight away I can see that it's not actually for me, although it says it's from Barclays Corporate, saying hello Williams, Jenny, Naomi. I know straight away no one would address me like that if it was from your actual bank. So basically, if I'd open that attachment that's at the top, which is a PDF, automatically as soon as I click on that attachment, malicious software will be downloaded onto my computer. I will then see a big box that pops up, like similar to the red one on the screen, and it will say, we've encrypted all your files and folders, and if you want to access them again, you must pay us a ransom. And the ransom will be in electronic currency. So for you to then find out how you're going to find electronic currency to pay the ransom is another world of pain that's being opened up to you. There's a company in Manchester who we dealt with a couple of weeks ago who got hit with ransomware, and their ransom was for £75,000. So we're not talking a little bit of money here. It is an awful lot of money. So to protect yourself from this type of attack, what we say is to have a backup all your important information. Be realistic in what you are backing up. You know, if you need to do this in your at home as well, because if you lost all your family photos from 10 years that you've been saving because ransomware got through to your home computers, then you're going to be absolutely devastated. So you do need to do this in your home life too. But please make sure that your backups are disconnected from your actual computers and your systems. The company that I just mentioned in Manchester, they did have backups, but their backups were still connected to their computers, and they unfortunately had to pay the ransom because they were unable to get any of their data back. So please just be careful if this type of thing happens to you. And obviously we don't encourage you to, we encourage you not to pay the criminal, because you are funding all the naughty stuff that they're doing. So please just be careful and try and have backups, but make sure that away from the systems.
So I'm just going to ask a quick question there, Jenny. Is the criminals that are doing this, these aren't amateurs, are they?
No, but some of them are, because it's really easy to buy ransomware as a service. So if you just Google on the dark web, it'll probably be, and it's very simple to do, to say, I want to send ransomware to this person. You can buy it. It's just like a form you fill in, you put the email address in, and it will be sent to that company or that person. It's really simple to do. It's not very complicated at all. I know. And so criminals will send out millions upon millions of emails a day, and their return might only be 1% of people clicking on that. That could be £100,000 that criminals earn in a day. So it's very lucrative for them, and it's something that's really easy for them to do. And it's very, very hard for us to track them all down, because this is happening in not just our country, in other countries who we don't have jurisdiction with them and we can't get any information from, so it's very difficult. So the other way in what we say to educate people is to take 5 before you click on anything. So this could be 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. Anything coming through on email or a phone call is never that urgent that you need to respond and do something straight away. Just if it comes through, just ask a colleague, do you think this looks real? Ask a friend, ask a family, discuss it with people. You don't need to react straight away. Even we know the criminals will put a lot of pressure on us and say, you know, we need it, we're going to get in trouble, we need you to do this now, please make the payment, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Nothing is ever that urgent that it can't wait an hour or so for you to check it out. So never disclose any security details. Don't assume an email, text or phone call is genuine. Don't be rushed. Listen to your instincts and stay in control. And it's really important that you do talk to your friends and family about this, so that they realise that it is something that they shouldn't respond to straight away. So this is the main biggest threat that we are seeing. So we know where the threats come from. We know it's criminals. We know they want to steal our money or our intellectual property. But really the biggest threat is from your current or former employees, or your friends and family as well, who are using your computers, because these are the ones who aren't probably educated in what the problems are and what the implications are. So the company I mentioned in Manchester, who got hit for £75,000 worth of ransomware, they will have to look at recouping that money from somewhere, and the majority of the time it's probably going to be staff jobs that are going to be lost. And we speak to a lot of staff members who say, well, so what if I click on ransomware email? So what if I do something online? You know, I might even get a couple of days off work. I could just put my feet up and it's not going to affect me. But the reality is it's going to affect us all. So we need to be careful. You need to make sure that you do educate your staff members, talk to them about what they're posting on social media. We actually say now social media is more of it's not a footprint of what you leave online. It's actually a tattoo, because it's a lot harder to get rid of a tattoo than it is a footprint. So please talk to your staff, check what they are posting online, check that the security settings are locked down. LinkedIn is a really good one for criminals to use, because if you've been in the newspapers saying how good your business is, or you've had a really good turnover this year, and criminals are looking at this type of thing, they can go onto LinkedIn, find out all the information about your colleagues and your staff, and then start building a picture of how they can target you. So please just make sure that they are safe online. USB sticks are a big thing at the moment. We're seeing they've been left outside smoking areas or entrances to buildings, and you don't actually know what's contained on that USB stick. Again, it could have malicious software on there that you're bringing back into your company and attaching it to the network. So have a think about if it's something easy where you can shut down your USB stick port, and we know a lot of companies are doing that now too. So Cyber Aware is the government's campaign about, and they say that if you have a strong password and you do your updates, then the majority of cybercrime will be prevented. But they've got a toolkit that you can easily print out and start educating your staff straight away. You can print out the posters. The Take 5 fraud campaign is on there as well. Again, they've got a toolkit which you can download these posters and just start educating your staff straight away, so that they are understanding the threat. It's all totally free, and if you see anything to do with cyberware, you know that is the government's campaign. The Cyber Information Sharing Partnership is really good to keep yourselves up to date with the latest threats, advice and guidance. So it is government funded but industry led, and it is basically a social media platform for businesses to share any threats that they're seeing across their networks. So if you do have a ransomware email that comes through, even if you've not clicked on it but you know it's suspicious, you can post that onto the platform so that other businesses can protect themselves against it, and block IP addresses and email addresses and things like that. It is very technical, but you can join our Northwest group and ask silly questions if you want, or if you want to keep yourselves up to date. Fujitsu is the sponsor of the Northwest group, and they're sharing the threats that they're seeing across their networks too. So I can provide you with further information if you need to know more about that. The Cyber Essentials scheme is a government scheme that they have produced, that they say if people follow these 5 simple advice and guidance and things that you can implement within your business, then again you have done the minimum standards that the government expects to secure your business. So also thinking about Cyber Essentials scheme, make sure that your supply chain is also registered with Cyber Essentials scheme. So if you are outsourcing any of your, if someone does your website for you, or if anyone holds any information for you, make sure that they are Cyber Essentials accredited, because that means the data they hold on you is a lot more secure. So there is a small cost to this, but you can download the questionnaire and work towards that for free as well if you follow that link. The National Cybersecurity Centre, who are a part of GCHQ, they have released loads of free advice and guidance, the main one being the Cybersecurity for Small Businesses Guide. Again, it's really simple stuff that you might not have thought about that you can implement within your business. So I definitely have a little look at that. It's totally free. You can just download it from the website, and they've got loads of infographics as well. So definitely check that out for further advice and guidance. If something does go wrong, you need to report it to Action Fraud. It's not actually your local police force. Action Fraud are the National Fraud and Cybercrime Reporting Centre. The more we report, the more the government's got to invest in keeping us safe. And also, your reports might be the missing part of a jigsaw puzzle of an investigation that we are dealing with. So please report as much as possible. Action Fraud do have an alerts system as well if you want to put your email address onto their newsletters, and they will let you know about the latest scams and things that are coming out. We do a monthly newsletter. If you want to sign up, you can go to our website and sign up that way. We're also all over social media if you want to follow us for the latest advice and guidance there too. That is it from me. I hope I haven't scared you too much, and there's a lot of advice and guidance you can take away with. I think we're going to save questions and answers for the end, but thanks very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Yep, scary as ever. I have a very, very quick question in here. Is without information, you guys are completely powerless, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. We just need people to report as much as they can. And a lot of people think, well, it didn't affect me, or, you know, nothing happened. I didn't get scammed. But how can we educate other people if we don't know about what's happening already?
And one of the things that a lot of businesses are afraid of when they have been a victim is kind of a PR impact on their business, is their reputation.
Yeah.
If they report an incident, you're completely confidential.
Yeah, of course. And well, now with GDPR, that swear words that everyone doesn't want to talk about, you have to report. So if you do have a data breach, you have to report it to the ICO. So, but if it's just things that, you know, you don't have to report, or, you know, nothing's happened to you, but we still need that information from you, and we need to build up a better picture of what is actually happening out there.
Fantastic. Many thanks, Jenny. So please keep your questions coming. We've got some more to come at the end. I'm going to hand over now to my my partner in crime in the Cyber Loss Prevention Forum, which is Jonathan Davis, who is
morning
insurance consultant at RiskWorks.
Correct,
So,
that's right. Thanks, Richard, and thanks, Jenny. Like I say, it's quite a scary topic at the moment. So as Richard said, my background is I'm an insurance consultant for RiskWorks Business Services, and for the last 4 or 5 years now, I've been focusing on growing the cyber on focusing on the growing cyber threats that businesses face and the insurance solutions that are available to protect against these. What I wanted to run through this morning is go through the potential effects that a cyber breach can have on your business, starting with the direct costs and losses, and then looking at some of the indirect and hidden costs that you may face, and that can often get quite overlooked when considering what your cyber exposure actually is. So this first slide, it just gives a brief snapshot of some of the tangible losses that you could face. And I've started with, as Jenny said, it's quite common, the phishing attacks and the theft from your bank account. And also something on the increase is the theft of client funds. So this is where specific professions are targeted by various scammers to try and get them to release client held funds into different bank accounts. Excuse me. Next on the list, I have theft following an invoice hack. So i.e. not being paid by a customer. Sorry, that slide should actually say customer rather than supplier, but the same applies when it comes to you paying your suppliers. So for example, where a customer pays your invoice and somewhere along the line it's been altered by a scammer, and it'll effectively leave you both out of pocket, and to argue who's at fault. The customer will obviously say, well, we've paid the invoice as you requested, but at the end of the day, you've not received the funds. So not only is the financial loss at risk here, but also the customer relationship. Loss of profits, so that's and your loss of income from not being able to trade, and also the increased cost incurred to ensure that you are able to keep working. So these are just some of the immediate financial hits. But in addition to this, you're also likely to face additional IT support costs, and this could include system rectification costs, replacement of damaged equipment, or the payment of a ransom in the event of ransomware being installed on your system, and then the forensic investigation costs. So they'll look at in depth at how the breach occurred, and then obviously patching up and fixing the vulnerabilities. In addition to this, into these direct costs, you can also face claims from third parties in the event of a data breach. Should you receive a claim of this nature, obviously you're going to incur legal costs, and these can rack up into the thousands and thousands before you know it. And then obviously they'll have to liaise with the claimants and their representation. And then if there's an investigation from the ICO or a regulation board, you could potentially be subject to penalties and fines and awards. And then lastly, I've put on the list PR costs. So in the event of a hack or a breach, it's how you respond that will often determine the long-term damage to your business. And an efficient PR response could be quite crucial. So those are just some of the direct costs. And on the next slide, I wanted to focus on and highlight the area that's likely to be overlooked, and that's the indirect. Hang on, I missed. Here we go. So we're starting with, I've just put down a few questions really as food for thought. Hopefully these will allow you to consider the full damage potential when it comes to a cyber attack or a hack. So firstly, how would this affect your client relationship? Would your inability to work and meet your clients' demands have an impact on them doing business with you in the future? Would they lose confidence after a breach? Would they look to competitors as a result? And would you be able to win back that business if you'd lost it? And what would the additional cost be to win back that business? Lastly, if you've been subject to a breach or a hack and it's in the public domain, how would this affect you acquiring new business? So those are just a few of the questions, hopefully give you a bit of a flavour as to what the challenges may be, and the idea being here that asking yourself these now prior to a breach rather than post-breach will most certainly allow you to respond more positively in the effect of. The next slide here I've put down is to highlight another area likely to be overlooked, and that's your time. Following a cyber breach or attack, it can be quite underestimated just how much of a drain on your resources this could have. So starting with business interruption, and aside from the potential loss of profit, the increased cost of workings, you may well have unnecessary staff downtime. And then once everything's been resolved, you might have potential staff overtime to pay in order to get back into the position you were prior to an incident. Trading downtime for online platforms, production downtime, that's especially if you've got any plant or machinery that's linked to an affected network. And then the other major consideration is how much of senior management time will be taken up. So notifying, engaging affected clients, notifying your customers, the ICO, and then dealing with your IT providers, dealing with your banks if you've suffered electronic theft, speaking to the police, speaking with your supply chain, with regulatory bodies, dealing with solicitors, dealing with your insurers. Excuse me. So it's quite easy to see how 20 minutes here and there, an hour there can soon add up, and before long a vast amount of valuable management time will have been consumed in addressing the cyber incident and forcing you to lose focus on your day-to-day activities. So in conjunction with the direct costs that I mentioned earlier, it's worth considering just how much time spent on something like this could have an effect on your business. So the last of my slides, what's the worst that could happen? So here I've just given a few claim examples that I've seen over the course of the years, and just to show how easy it can be to become a victim of cybercrime. So starting with the boss is on holiday. So this occurred to a national furniture provider whose accounts department received a number of emails allegedly from a senior director. The director was away on holiday at the time, and the messages came from his iPhone, all looked legit, asking to pay a number of new providers various amounts. So obviously it seems like quite an obvious and typical scam. However, in this instance, the hacker knew that the director was away on holiday, and they engaged in several chatty messages and replies, and that led to effectively the accounts department believing that the request was genuine. Of course, if they'd phoned him, they would have saved the company the £60,000 that they ended up losing. But I think the hackers were obviously looking towards and hoping that they wouldn't phone him on the basis that they wouldn't want to disturb him while he was away on holiday. Unfortunately, in this instance, the company had a good cyber insurance policy that reimbursed them. Next on the list, a bad round at the golf club. Again, a similar type of scam. This focuses on a spear phishing attack where a CEO received an email, it's his work email address, purporting to be from the golf club he was a member of. Had all the club logos, had all the company secretary name was correct, and it was inviting him to an annual dinner dance with a link to an online registration and a ticket purchase. Sadly, having filled out the form, providing the bank details, the scammers got away with over £5,000. So I've added these first two claims just to highlight the level of sophistication and the lengths of social engineering that the hackers and the scammers go to in order to attack the specific targets, and therefore how easily it can be to be duped. Next on the list, I've got down and out for the Xmas sales. I'd call it, try and get a little festive. But this involved a second-hand phone purchaser and reseller. And they traded solely online, and they suffered a DDoS attack on Boxing Day, which effectively shut down their website and trading platform. Sadly for them, Boxing Day was traditionally their busiest day of the year, and the loss estimates were in the region of £200,000, which will have no doubt ended up going to a competitor. And the last example I've put is Up in Smoke. So this refers to a large processing plant that was hacked. As their network was linked to a plant and machinery, the hackers, I think in this case they were possibly hacktivists, they were able to alter the thermostat of the industrial control systems, which caused them to overheat, and then ultimately it caused a massive fire and explosion. Damage and loss in the estimates estimated to be in the region of several million. So of course this example, obviously the very top end of what is the worst that could happen, but I've added this just to show that the cyber incident doesn't necessarily just revolve around your computers, your servers, your network. It's obviously much far reaching and quite scary stuff. So that's all I wanted to go through with you this morning, and I hope it's given you some useful information and food for thought. And I hope, like Jenny, I've not come across as too much of a scaremonger. But over the course of these webinar series, we're going to be looking at a number of different areas within the cyber field with a view to helping you reduce the risks, whether this be through physical security, business continuity and disaster recovery planning. We'll also look at staff training and areas that encourage cyber savvy culture within your business. And last but not least, risk transfer. So the underlying message of this series and these webinars is to help reduce the level of exposure through prevention, and just as important is to consider protection through risk transfer and insurance, with the view to tackling the issue from both angles ultimately is what's going to give you the peace of mind. So in future webinars, I'll go over and discuss what's available in the insurance market, what's typically excluded, from standard policies and to highlight the gaps of cover that you might have in your current insurance program. Of course, in the interim, if you've got any questions, you want to have a chat, feel free to give me a call or drop me an email and I'll happily discuss. I'm not sure how we're doing for time, Richard, but that's me wrapped up pretty much.
We are bang on, Jonathan. Thank you very much. So that's great. And some really, really valuable information came through in all of that. So we have a couple of questions that kind of come through in here. First one I wanted to kind of open up is, we might have to huddle a little around the microphone here as we're all in the same room. But so in many businesses, cybersecurity is something that's handed over to the IT team. What I'm hearing in there was not a lot of stuff where the IT team were involved until after the event. Am I right in saying that the threats target people, not technology a lot of the time?
Yeah, definitely. The criminals they sort of know when to target us as well. So they'll target us on Monday mornings when we're trying to get everything clear for the week, Friday afternoons when they know we all want to get down the pub. So they will target us when we are feeling a little bit more vulnerable. And it's not down to our IT department anymore. You know, it is the insider threat, as I mentioned before. It's about us. We are the ones that the criminals are targeting. So they want us to click on things. They want us to give our information away. So it's not an IT problem anymore. We're all responsible for these threats.
Yeah, agreed. Certainly within the insurance industry, the highest number of claims comes from human error.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's targeting the specific individual, and IT support's fantastic in recovering and helping you patch the problem, but essentially you're looking to stop it before it occurs. The only way of doing that is engaging the staff and getting them on board for training and understanding what the risks are.
Okay. Another question that I had, so I think, Jenny, you dropped the 4-letter word first this morning in GDPR. There's a good bit of focus around this, but a lot in terms of how people are handling personal data. But cybersecurity, cyber protection, there are a lot of responsibilities under GDPR, aren't there?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Cyber Essentials is a really good way of starting on that, protecting yourself, because that's the government's benchmark of what they're recommending companies do. So that is a really good place to start with that. Yeah, but yeah, it's very difficult, and you know, these threats aren't going to go away. They're only going to get worse. They're getting more sophisticated. So we do need to keep ourselves educated and know what's going on to protect ourselves.
Okay. A very interesting question here. I think someone might be trying to get around something here, but as we've got the insurance expert in the room, then we might as well ask the question straight up. Is can you insure against GDPR fines?
Oh, good question. Good question. It's one I'm getting asked an awful lot of, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a definitive yes/no at this current time. There's nothing within GDPR that says the fines are uninsurable. However, going forward, I do expect that to be challenged within the courts, and ultimately, I think they will be uninsurable, as it will go against the public interest, and it will effectively, if you can insure against them, it effectively waters down what GDPR is trying to achieve. So, like I say, it's a yes/no answer, but I wouldn't rely on your insurance product to pay the fines. That said, what a good insurance product will do is it will pay for your legal representation, the investigation costs, and the hidden costs within reporting to and dealing with the ICO. Yeah, sorry, I can't give you a straightforward
it's
that's where we are at the moment.
Always good to put someone on the spot on one of these things. We mentioned email a couple of times, so you had a couple of examples, Jonathan, where it was an email that had triggered it. You showed some phishing emails. That's phishing with a PH.
Yeah.
Which were looking for cash. We really have to be careful about these things, don't we? Are there any top tips you can give somebody when they're receiving an email?
Yeah, so emails are quite insecure, and if you use public Wi-Fi a lot when you are out and about, it's even worse, really, because everything that gets sent between your device and that public network is sent in plain text. So it's very easy for a criminal to just scoop that up, and then they can then, if you're doing a lot of emails that have got a long email chain on them, the criminal's reading that, seeing how you word things, and can then actually get an email to you pretending to be from that person if they've intercepted these emails. So public Wi-Fi, we see a lot of in coffee shops. Criminals will sit in the coffee shop and pretend to be that public Wi-Fi, so you don't actually know which Wi-Fi you're connecting to, who is receiving that information. So if you do use a lot of public Wi-Fi when you are out and about, it's really worthwhile investing in a virtual private network or VPN, and that will encrypt all of the data going between the connections then. But please be careful when you are using that, because that's a prime way for criminals to understand how you word things and word things exactly like you.
And there's an interesting position here, which is if it is an email that is causing you to make a payment into a fraudster's bank account.
Yeah.
If it is the supplier's email that it's come from, is there any liability within there?
I suppose first thing you should, when it comes to things like that, this is where obviously human error and having a good cyber savvy staff is, you get an email from a supplier with you would traditionally probably have their bank details on your record somewhere. If they're different, phone them up. Make sure you have dual forms of communication, and that should stop the threat in the first instance, and you'll be able to pick up on the scam. Certainly there's insurance available for these types of things, but obviously insurers are keen to encourage good cyber savviness within your company.
Yeah,
so.
and I guess as you talked us through, Jonathan, is what happens is you've made that payment, you've got a supplier still waiting for payment, you've got a fraudster who's got the money, you've got a double loss within there. You've got a heck of a lot of time and energy that has then got to be put back into rebuilding that relationship.
Correct. And a lot of it comes down to the client relationship. If it's one of your key clients, whilst you might have paid their invoice into a separate bank account, is it worth risking the relationship over that particular payment? And do you just take the hit? How do you? It's obviously different for each company, so it's food for thought very much. And but there is insurance available, but I wouldn't. Obviously, the key, as with the forum, is to look at it from both angles.
Okay. So we are within time. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time and attention this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit here on what is actually a beautiful sunny morning in the run-up to Christmas here in Macclesfield. I'll borrow from a famous TV presenter and say, don't have nightmares, but this is about awareness. The idea that we had when we first sat down and talked about the forum, that this was going to be non-technical. This was going to be not about what measures you have to put in place. This is about awareness of threat and awareness of risk. Jenny, many thanks. That's been superb this morning. If people have a question that they want to raise to you, they can raise it through us. But what's your email address? If they want to send it?
It's on the slide, jenny.williams_cyber@titan.police.uk, or you can tweet me, or you can LinkedIn me, you can do whatever. So, but yeah, please get in touch, and we are here to help.
Okay. And Jonathan, if anybody has any questions regarding the risk or cover,
by all means, give me a call, or email is jonathand@riskworksbusiness.com. Happy to discuss.
Okay. Any general questions, any that you want me to put out to the panel? My email is richard@vaultconnect.co.uk. We will be contacting everybody shortly. We've got an interesting program with some really interesting speakers lined up for January, February and March. So we will be in touch about those. I hope that you found this useful. Please send me any feedback that you have. It can only help us to improve. And yeah, this is absolutely about helping business people prepare themselves and prevent loss. Thank you very much, everybody.